Electric scooters. They became super popular in the last few years, mostly in Western European and cities in the North US. Well, the question is how we can organize the develop of that kind of transportation. Transportation, hype, something which is just the fun. And the question is how to develop it next. If you take a look at history, uh, the electric scooters appeared first in San Francisco more than 10 years ago. Super fast, start developing in all other cities in Europe and America, and just 2 years after that, in Warsaw and in other cities in Poland, they appeared. What the challenges we are thinking about in developing? First, let's start with administration. Electric scooters. Well, it is that. According to our ordinance, we can say nothing like that is existing in law. It's physically non-existent. It's quite hard to say we have in law something which is non-existing. For example, in Poland, they are treated as pedestrians. Pedestrians, which runs 25 kilometers per hour between the people. That's one of the challenges that we have in here. And how to develop that kind of transportation to make it usable within the city.
Electric scooters, after some time, they start to make people angry. So people haven't seen a new way of transportation, but they just seen electric scooters thrown on the streets or going very fast around the people. And because of that, the regulations started. Right now, we have electric scooters banned in Paris or in Madrid. So it was a typical example of how and where the current technologies are changed. So technology is not the problem by itself, but we're more thinking about the people attitudes to that. Thinking about it, we can say that at first, the number of users of electric scooters was growing super fast. But after some time, it became stable, sadly. Then it started dropping once again. The question is, why? What were the challenges that we can observe in here? Well, the answer is business. The business problems both for the users and for the companies which are serving them. For users, electric scooters started to become pretty expensive. It was more challenging from the perspective of the companies. The original business model that we have with electric scooters, which was launched in the US, was in the way that you rent electric scooter and then you can charge it at your home and you got the money back from the company. But it didn't work in that way, for example, in the EU countries, because we have different taxation for individual users and for the companies. Complicated? Well, beside of being complicated, this new business model for charging electric scooters is very expensive. 80% of operational cost is the cost of picking up the scooter, charging them, and then leaving them in dedicated places, which means it's expensive for the companies, but as a result, it also started to become expensive for the users. And that's one of the reasons why we have dropping number of the users of electric scooters. Can we do something with that? If you take a look on what we have behind of me, we have more than 15 electric scooters in here, which means instead of taking them in dedicated places, it might make sense just to bring them in here and build charging stations, which means it's more eco-friendly. You don't have to drive them in dedicated places. It will be cheaper and it will be faster. Disadvantages? There is mostly one, but it's pretty important. You have to get lots of permissions and paperwork for installing charging stations in every station in which you have scooters, which, for example, in Poland might take up to 2 years to get the permission for one charging place. Well, there is one more problem. If you take a look on the scooters that we have in here, we have two different companies. And each of them, they have their own business model. So it's not only installing charging stations, but you have to have different companies that would like to use it in the way, because that's the only way that makes business sense. Well, In the city of Gdańsk, in which we are right now, we have 5 different companies operating electric scooters. Even myself, being the fan of that type of technology, and that's the business that I also do, how many applications you might have in your own mobile phone. Unlocking them, just to have the one in here, makes sense if you have 1, maximum 2. But having 5, which means even if you have 10,000 scooters in the whole city like we have right now, it doesn't mean you can use the whole potential of that. Which practically means thinking about electric scooters in the city, we have lots of challenges. So they might bring us the potential effect that we would like to have. People who are not using cars, who would like to move fast in eco-friendly way. But how to do it, to have the business sense, how to integrate that type of the solutions, and finally, how to operate them in everyday move. These are the challenges that every city will have to face in the coming 3-4 years.